What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with my latest poll. I want to ask you guys some questions, get some feedback, leave a comment, let me know what you guys think. I will also go over my stance on the matter. Some people have been questioning and leaving comments, so I figured this is a good question to ask you guys. Is the Adrian Broner versus Marcos Maidana pay-per-view worthy? As you guys know, Adrian Broner and Marcos Maidana, they'll be facing off December 14th. This is a pay-per-view card, so Adrian Broner's first headlining pay-per-view event. It's going to be on Showtime pay-per-view. And it appears they're stacking the undercard. You have the return of Victor Ortiz, who's been inactive for 18 months. He's returning. He's moving up in weight to fight Carlos Molina, who just obtained a belt in the 154-pound division. He beat Ishe Smith. It was a stinker of a fight. However, he is the man holding the belt. Ishe Smith got that belt from K9 Bundrage, so that's an interesting clash. Then you have Jesus Soto Caras, who basically reinvented his career after a string of losses. He had a tough competitive fight with Marcos Maidana, even though he lost that fight. And then he beat Selçuk Aydin and had a solid win against Andre Berto, so he got put back in the mix. And he's fighting Keith one-time Thurman. And that's another fighter who just came off of a tough, probably his toughest pro fight that I can remember, and that was against Diego Chavez. He definitely put up a bout, made Keith Thurman adapt and not necessarily just slug it out. Keith Thurman had to use some boxing ability, boxing skill, think a little bit more, because Diego Chavez was a belt holder and he came to win. He was undefeated. He showed he has power, chin, boxing ability, and that was a very good fight. So this is an interesting undercard. I want to know if you guys think it's enough to make this a pay-per-view event. Me personally, I say yes. I would pay, and I'm going to pay if I'm not going to my friend's house. Somebody's going to pay. I think this is a solid card. And again, I've seen other fights that people have had to pay for, like Pacquiao versus Marquez 4, and only the main event was really noteworthy, and that was like Pacquiao and Marquez in the fourth fight. That was a good fight, very solid. But the undercard fights, Gamboa, Michael Farinas, and it just wasn't. It wasn't really worth the money. That's just my personal opinion. These fights, I think, is a little bit different. I don't see with these particular matches, I don't see how they can make for a boring fight per se. Like even if you look at the Mayweather Canelo to me was a good fight, and then you had Lucas Matisse and Danny Garcia, which is another good fight. And I told you guys, based on that particular clash, those two personalities in the ring, I don't see how it's going to be made for a boring fight. Now, if you look at Carlos Molina, he's not necessarily the most interesting fighter. He's been a fighter who's been called, quote unquote, boring. But then you have the polar opposite in Victor Ortiz, who, win, lose, or draw, always has exciting fights. So I don't really see how it's going to make for a boring fight. I think Carlos Molina is going to try to stay out of harm's way, but I think Victor Ortiz, just his fighting style, he's going to press the action, be very offensive-minded, and look to make a statement. So I see that fight being more interesting than like a Carlos Molina and an Ishe Smith, who neither one of them was really willing to commit or engage. So that was a boring fight to me on the Mayweather-Canelo undercard. Then you have Keith Thurman and Soto Caras. I really don't see how that's going to be a boring fight either. Since I've seen Keith Thurman, his fights with Quintana, Zibic, Diego Chavez, he has not bored me. He's an entertaining fighter. He's a knockout artist. He shows boxing poise and ability. He's developing. He's getting better and not necessarily just looking for the knockout per se. He's showing other aspects of his game. So he's looked solid. Then you have Jesus Soto Caras, who basically, like I said earlier in the video, reinvented himself with two solid wins, Selçuk Aydin and his win over Andre Berto by stopping Berto. Those are solid wins. And even his fight with Marcos Maidana is a feared puncher, and he held a good account of himself. He didn't just get fucked up the whole round. It was very competitive. You had to give some rounds to Caras, and then some rounds to Maidana. So I just see all in all it being a good matchup. I think the styles, the clash of those styles will make for exciting boxing. Again, with Jesus Soto Caras, he has a chin, so I know he could take shots. So I don't see Keith Thurman. It's kind of a mismatch in terms of, I don't know. It seems kind of like a mismatch on paper, but again, Jesus Soto Caras has a chin, and he throws a high volume of punches, and he's looked very, very focused in his last two fights, the fight against Selçuk Aydin and also the fight against Andre Berto. And Andre Berto, whether you like him or not, I think he possessed athletically the skills to beat Soto, but Soto looked very sharp with his boxing ability. He threw a large, high work rate, high volume of punches, so he could trouble Keith Thurman. Even though Keith Thurman I would favor in that particular bout, um, Soto definitely has experience with big names. Definitely more than Keith Thurman at a pro level. Soto Caras has been in there with Gabe Rosados. He's been in there with the Maidanas and the Idens and Andre Bertos. So he definitely has more pro level experience. And he looked really sharp in the Andre Berto fight. So it's interesting. It looks kind of like a mismatch on paper because I think Keith Thurman will win. But like I said, there are elements that I think could pose problems or cause Keith Thurman to abandon game plan A and have to go to game plan B. And then the main event, you got Marcos Maidana versus Adrian Broner. Marcos Maidana, another fighter who doesn't really put on boring matches. He gives it his all. He's a tough customer. He has punching power. And Adrian Broner with only his second welterweight performance. And a lot of people said, oh, his power's not there because he fought a tricky fighter like Paulie Malignaggi. So that remains to be seen. So it's only his second appearance, which makes this a really intriguing match. Marcos Maidana has definitely acclimated more to the welterweight division. His first fight at welterweight was against Devin Alexander, and that was perhaps his worst performance, and that was pre-Robert Garcia. Robert Garcia has been putting in work with him. He's been utilizing a jab, not necessarily just all brawling tactics, and it looks like Garcia is trying to make him a more well-rounded, polished fighter, not just a brawler and someone who relies on their punching power. So as time went on, I think Marcos Maidana has shown steady improvements in the welterweight division. I think probably his best performance was against Soto Caras. I seen him using a jab. He looked really sharp. I seen him fighting off the ropes. Better defense than I've seen in past fights with him. So that's intriguing. And then Adrian Broner, he's going to talk shit. They've already started talking shit and almost got in a scuffle in Vegas. It's going to be entertaining. I really feel that. So win, lose, or draw, I think they'll put on a good match in the main event. And then, like I said, I really don't see how we can miss with the undercard fight. So let me know what you guys think. Is this pay-per-view worthy? Are you going to stream it? Are you not going to watch it? Let me know something. And what was the worst pay-per-view card that you remember buying? So leave a comment. Let me know those things. As always, hey, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.